Hey guys, so I'm in the process of building a new quad that's going to be sort of my backup quad for when my main one breaks. Just an all-around freestyle quad that I've been now testing and flying in different configurations for the last maybe roughly a year or so. And I thought I might as well just go through how I built these things and how I especially try to build this backup quad, which is meant to really be reliable, just all-around freestyler, flying in new locations where maybe you know, your reception isn't always a given and things like this. So basically I'm trying to imitate this guy here, which is a Hook V2 from Pirat. So it's a standard 5-inch frame, true X design, and I built it specifically to be very crashable. So it's got the stubby antenna here, which makes it hard to break the antenna. It's got the DJI system, which is, in this case, a Vista, which is really, in my experience, very hard to break. And just all around, I found this frame to be pretty nice in its durability. The arms break, but that's fine. They're easy to switch out, but so far I haven't really broken anything else. And so, for instance, it can easily take crashes such as this one. Or maybe this one. As a matter of fact, I took this and another one like it just with HDZero to Rampage in May, and both survived beautifully with just a bunch of broken arms, but nothing else from the electronics really got damaged. So yeah, just to go over what I'm building here as a backup. Again, I have the same frame. These things are great in my opinion. They're from this French company called Pirat. This is the old version of their small toilet tank frame, the Hook V2, and this has been around for a while, especially in Europe. Now you can often get it on sale because they have a replacement for it, but I actually prefer to fly this old one because the parts are so easily available. The rest is really just what I found to be really the most reliable and easy to use stuff. Motors, everyone can debate on. It's really up to your, you know, what you prefer as a more high KV, low KV, a more zippy, faster motor, or more like a smooth but powerful motor. On this, I fly mostly the Hero 11 on this build, so I have this very large 25mm motor on there, which makes it really tight and smooth flying with specifically the heavier camera. For this one, I think I'm going to focus on the Action 2, and there I'm just taking a RCN Power Wasp with 1880 kb, I think, or 1860, and these are really they spool up very fast. They're nice and zippy, so it's going to be pretty responsive. Then for the flight controller, KISS Ultra V2, it's in my experience the easiest to deal with and flies the nicest without having to do any sort of tuning. And then I got lucky enough to get a Voltara ESC on the release recently of this. So this was designed to actually work perfectly in unison with the KISS Ultra. So you just plug it in, and you don't have to really do anything with the settings. Again, it just works. And we'll see about the reliability. I already have one of these in this build that I've crashed a bunch and seems to be doing really well. And like I said, I'll put a Vista in there with the original camera, a different lens, and ELRS receiver and some other types of things. So yeah, I'm gonna go down to the garage where I assemble this thing, and then, you know, I mean, everyone builds quads in their way and have their own preferred things of doing, ways of doing things. But I found I did learn a bunch from different people, just little tricks that I saw in their videos. So, you know, maybe it can be useful for someone. That would be cool. If you see something that I do that it could, you were like, realize, oh, that's a cool way of doing it. But yeah, in any case, enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. And yeah, I think we'll start with prepping the ESC, which in my opinion, is like the most critical thing for any like really reliable build, because that's where all the power goes through. That the ESC is nice and cushioned a little bit so that it doesn't bend when the frame crashes and so on. So I'll show you how I do that, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so the first thing I do is installing the stack screws. They're very short and just held down by these flat M3 nuts. That gives just enough space to put the ESC on top of these. And also these flat nuts make sure that the stack screws will not move. You can really tighten these down very strongly. Then you can see that we'll just put the ESC on here. And this ESC, the Voltara, has pre-mounted gummies, which is pretty nice. Basically these screws are barely clearing the gummy, which is good, because now we can cinch the whole thing down by using these Impulse RC, let's focus here, Impulse RC standoffs, which are very firm standoffs, which is what you need for Kiss Ultra. So you just push that down while you turn, and that gives everything a nice amount of room to breathe underneath. This is plenty of space. You have gummies protecting the ESC, and also the ESC is firmly in place. Nothing can move. The stack screws are screwed down very solidly. I want to make sure that I can solder all the wires to this ESC that I need to before I even put it in the frame, because that allows me to conformal coat the whole thing and make sure that nothing is still like able to conduct anything or cause any damage if it splashes onto the ESC. And so the first thing you'd have to figure out is which way you want your power leads to go. I usually route them like this through the side and then zip tie them to one of these standoffs. And so I'll just take some of this 14, this is I think 14 AWG wire. Same goes for the capacitor, which comes with the Voltara. It's a 1000 microfarad 35 volt cap. So this I will store here in the front of the frame behind the camera, and I will also connect it with some wire to the ESC. In this case I use 16 AWG 16 gauge wire. You know, once you know roughly where everything goes in your frame, you can actually solder the whole thing up outside of the frame. One thing that you need for this though is to use something like this race wire to connect your motors, because now you can basically already pre-solder motor wires to the ESC that you then just have to cut to the right length for the race wire later, and that way once the ESC is installed you never really have to move it again, and that makes the whole thing quite a bit easier in my opinion. But yeah, so let's see how that goes. And now I'm going to solder the capacitor leads on the underside. And here I have to make sure that this will get quite flat to the bottom of the ESC, so that there's no way that this will be able to touch the frame, because there's going to be only a couple of millimeters of space there. Just make sure that these are really pushed down onto the pads. lot of wire here to play with. Whichever way this will end up fitting in the frame, you'll just be able to cut it off wherever you need it and solder to the capacitor. Same with the XT60 plug. Just have the length once it's installed in the frame, and then put the XT60 plug on there. So some more little soldering I will do. I'll just add a wire to the, there's a negative and a positive tiny pad here that I'll use to power probably my VTX. Then I don't need to solder to these giant pads again because these are now pretty hard to readjust. And double check that I don't have a short here, because these are so close together. That's fine. Everything pretty good. Also minus goes to minus, I did the right pads. Plus to plus. Great. Alright, and that's done. So now the next step is just to finish coating all the motor wires, connections, and then we can put it in the frame. Looks like a bit of a mess now, but I'm sure this will fit nicely and make the next steps quite a bit easier. Let's do it. Next, we can install the motors and trim the wires just enough to solder to these race wires. I've gone ahead and pre-tinned the pads of the Ultra as well. We won't be using a ton of these pads. It'll just be these four for the receiver, these for the buzzer, and these two, which are UART 6 for the Vista. Let's start with the receiver. This is ELRS 2.4 from, I think, from Beta FPV. So for the Vista, I will be using this little Maytag back, which outputs 9 volt, 1.5 amps, so it's definitely enough for the Vista. And this will go sit right on top here, so I will just have to put the power leads to this, so I won't have to make them very long. And then the UART connections, so the TX and RX from the Vista, will go be longer cables to connect to the flight controller. Just coat this while we're here. Might as well just live right here. I'm making sure I leave some room there for the screws for later. Just squish that down. It's not gonna go anywhere. And I'll do the same to the receiver. Wrap it in some Kapton tape and then attach it to the frame, because this sort of goes way at the bottom of the frame, so I'll put that in first. Yeah, so here, this is the front of the frame, and the receiver will go down here and be zip tied to this little beam. So again, I start with a nice piece of double-sided tape. Okay, now a small zip tie. The antenna is even held in place with the zip tie. Alright, so the next step will be putting the Vista in the frame. But before that, I'm going to switch out this lens. There's actually an aftermarket lens you can get, which is the Runcam RH16. And this lens has a much larger front element, which I'll show you. and also field of view is a little bit larger. So you get a bit more fisheye, but it really helps you to see for freestyle while you're doing loops and Matty flips and so on. It helps you to see on the periphery of your vision. But you see this lens does protrude a little further out of the camera, but really I think the image quality is much nicer. Also, flying against the sun, you get less glare, you get more of a almost cinematic looking lens flare, but it's much smaller and less glary than in the original lens. Next, we'll want to get the screws that are long enough to go through here and hold the Vista on top of this tape. I've used just a zip tie before, but I've actually had a Vista that somehow, through vibrations over time, these little screws came loose and then the whole thing separated in two parts. So now I just prefer to use the mounting screws on the 20 by 20 holes here, and this way it will not, this will never happen. So I have this Foxier lollipop antenna, which is pretty nice, but the important thing is that it doesn't have one of those plastic tubes, so you can stick it into a 3D print like this, which will completely protect it from any impacts, basically. Okay, put this antenna on, and then put the flight controller in there and start soldering this thing up. With most ESCs, especially ELRS and anything that's not just KISS or Voltara, you're going to have to repin this cable, and that's very important because otherwise you're going to put LiPo voltage on the wrong line, and that's going to kill the flight controller. I'm going to route these receiver wires under and around, and these also can actually go underneath. They are long enough, and that will keep the top of the flight controller really nice and clean with no cables on it that could like hit the gyro or do anything. It gives the most room above the flight controller, which is also good for the clearance to the battery strap. LiPo powered buzzer in case the battery disconnects. This will keep beeping and will help me find the quad. So far this has saved one or two of my quads, so definitely, in my opinion, worth putting in the build. It's time for the capacitor mounting. So we have this 35 volt 1000 microfarad capacitor. I'm going to mount it using one of these capacitor caps, because that makes soldering to it easier for me. Alright, and that's done. The leads from the ESC are connected pretty much as close as they can be to the base of the legs there, and then the two leads going to the back of the Vista are also soldered to the legs. Alright, so moment of truth, the first plug-in. Let's hope nothing explodes. Nice. Those three beeps means arming is ready. I'm just going to continue here, coat all the last things that need to be coated, like the cap connections, top of the flight controller, and whatever else I can find, maybe the motor pads. And then we'll go and try this thing out. I'm stoked about that. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, I hope you maybe saw something here that could be useful to you in your builds. Basically, I just loaded the defaults on KISS Ultra on this thing, put in my rates and the OSD preset from the other quad that I already have. So yeah, I'm going to put in some Maiden footage and yeah, keep ripping, keep flying, enjoy, have a good day. Cheers.